What's going on, everyone? Desktops Gaming here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have something pretty neat. This massive behemoth of a case is the InWin 309 Gaming Edition. One of the only cases that comes with a controller. We'll go over that more in a sec. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, definitely appreciate subscribing. Check out all of our playlists down below. This will be in our builds playlist. And of course, like the video and share it around. Definitely try to grow this as fast as possible. We have an Instagram that also ties to this channel. So if you guys want to see any close-up pictures or shots or any reels we do, head on over to Desktops Gaming. Like I said, definitely appreciate growing over there as well from you guys. But anyway, enough of the housekeeping. Today we're looking at the InWin 309 Gaming Edition. This is a kind of a chimney style design. We'll get some more close-ups here in a bit, but it definitely intrigued me when InWin sent it over, not only for the panel that it has on the front. I don't know if you guys can see that there. We'll get some more close-ups in a bit, but the fact that this case ships with a little controller. Now you ask, why would a case ship with a literal like gamepad controller? That's because the front of this case is actually a panel that you can play little games on. I know that sounds crazy, but you can also display different things on it, such as whether it be time or little, what do you call it? I guess little 8-bit GIFs. Don't come at me in the comments. But basically, you can design this little front panel to do a bunch of different things, and it matches up with the lighting of the fans that are inside of the case as well. So we're going to be diving into doing a build with this today, but a little different than my normal build stuff. I actually wanted to kind of transplant my current rig into this one just to put it to the test. All right, well, let's get some close-ups here. I'll come grab you guys and I'll kind of show you the rundown of the case real quick. All right, so up close here, this is the InWin 309 Gaming Edition. Let's see, let's go and take a good look at the front of the case here. Hopefully you guys can see that well. We'll kind of dial this ISO back up a little bit. There we go. Get a little bit brighter for you guys. But basically you have side panel connectors here, which is pretty neat. You have your power button here. You have two USB 3s. There's a USB C, it's 3.1. You have microphone, headphone jack, and then you have these little program buttons here. Now these do correspond with the front of the case here. You can see there's kind of, it's got smudges all over it. You can see there's kind of a little bit of square patterns along this here. I'm not sure how well that shows up on camera. That's actually where you can, where it does the little display thing. We'll go over here in a little bit, but these little buttons on the side here control the mode and then different pre-built settings it has if you don't want to run through the software that they offer, because it does have a software it connects with as well. All right, so going into the front of the case here, I thought the mechanism up top here was pretty neat, kind of like my P120. It has a little latch feature. So the way this works here, near the little InWin logo, you just press this in, and then it lifts off, it latches like so. So I thought that was very neat, kind of a toolless entry feature. You just kind of click that down, and then we can lift it off and set that to the side. All right, so going inside the case here, we have a few of the Saturn fans already installed. Like I said, InWin did send me over another 3-pack here for going in the bottom of the case. So we'll go and take the little stuff here out, which, like I said, doesn't normally come with that stuffed in the case, but InWin did send that over where I could do 3 intake at the bottom, and then we're gonna have these set up as exhaust. So probably gonna put that 360 rad up top here and then mount these fans to it. We can get that to work well. Because like I said, I just pretty much want to transplant what I already have in there over to this case and test it out. All right, so going over everything here, like I said, you have that exhaust fan in the back. Like I said, I'll set these up as intake. We do have a dust filter down here at the bottom. We can pull that out. So I like that it's on the side of the case, makes it pretty easy to get to. Like I said, pretty much just have access to it on the side there. So if you don't take anything off, you can just grab it from the side, pull it out, dust it off, put it back in. Going inside here, hopefully it gets a good lighting there. So we have our motherboard layout here. Looks like, do we have how many standoffs do we have pre-installed here? It looks like we'll have to install the, we have 1, 2, there's one missing here. It looks like there's only 4 installed currently, which is odd. It's set up as mini ITX mode right now, but it does go from mini ITX up to full-size ATX. Like I said, I'll have to untie all the front panel connectors here, but we have the normal front panel connectors. Looks like we have a couple SATA connectors here. I'm assuming that's for the fan and for the front panel control here. We have that USB Type-C header right here. So I definitely want to use the X570 board take advantage of that, even though I don't really use Type-C devices that often. And then going over to this side here, you definitely have plenty of room in this case, because like I said, even if you have, I'm assuming even if we had full-size e-atx board here, we have plenty of room to get to everything. All the normal cutout places and all that good stuff. Looks like a decent back panel there. And we have two 2.5-inch drive mounts along the side here with cutouts here for, there's no grommets on any of these, but cutouts for, assuming your 24 pin would come through here. And it looks like you would pass your SATA connections through here. And then of course we have the normal PCIe slots in the back. And then you just have this kind of pass-through exhaust out the top here. Like I said, this is still kind of a chimney design, so we're gonna have intake through here and exhausting out the top of here. All right, let's go and spin the case around. Let's look at the back of the case. So on the back of the case, we have some thumb screws here, which are pretty stout. So let's see if we can get these off. Okay, yeah, we don't need tools. And they are a little captive, so they do stay pretty much in place. But it's 2 of those to take this back panel off. And you see it's kind of got this, well, there'd be a hex pattern here on the back. 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6. It's a hex pattern on the back here. This will be the exhaust vents for those 3 fans that are already installed there. No mesh filter or anything looks like. So it looks like they do intend this to be exhaust, not intake, unless you want unfiltered intake. I guess you could. Let's go and remove this guy here. All right, so looking here at the back of the case, we do have this little sled here. This is where actually our power supply would install. So it's going to be going in right here. So it would kind of block, depending on how long your power supply is, it would kind of block some of your exhaust here. So maybe covering up to this 120 millimeter, first 120 millimeter here. So I mean, it's not too bad, but like I said, depending on what length power supply you use will depend on how bad that would interfere. We do have some cutouts up top here. Looks like we got a pass through here. There's a smaller one, looks like right here as well. And then going around here, let's see if we move down the case here. Looks like we move these out of the way. I'm assuming these are 3.5-inch mounts, if I'm not mistaken. You can put a 3.5-inch. There's 2 of these back here, or I'm assuming you could do a 2.5-inch and mount it this direction instead of facing this way. But those are just held by little thumb screws here. Then that plate will lift out like so. It's just 1 screw holding it in. You could screw it. Let's do this one-handed here, and then screw it back in. There we go. Yeah, like so that just mounts like that. We have a decent amount of space back here if we look at the gap. So I mean, cable management shouldn't be too bad. We'll definitely see with the power supply sitting up top and the kind of power supply basement being up top instead of down bottom like some of the cases. We'll see how that goes, but I'm kind of used to that considering the P120 is kind of built the same way. And going around the back side here, just have a normal I/O and everything. Like I said, the power supply goes up here. And then we have our motherboard cut out here. And then, of course, PCIe slots and everything we saw earlier. But yeah, the kind of magic of this case, set you guys down for a sec, is actually the front panel here. So you actually get one of these with it. It's a little gamepad. Has a little D-pad, start select button, and an ABCD button here, reminiscent of like I guess an SNES style controller. Looks like we have 2 little infrared marks on the front there, and there's actually little spots on the front of the case here. I'm assuming that's where the infrared sensor is, and it reads through there. Yeah, guys, let's take a look at the P120, see what we're going to be implanting over from. So what we'll be transplanting from today. So we'll be taking all the parts out of this. We'll do some thermal tests first, and we'll talk about what kind of results we get. Probably just do some Cinebench test CPU thermals, and then we'll probably do probably time spy or something for the GPU, and then let that saturate as well, and just see, kind of torture test both and see what kind of thermals this case gives me. This case always performed pretty well. Plenty of fans, moves plenty of air. Like I said, this one just exhausting out the side of the case, but as you can see, it's glass front, glass side, temper side as usual, and then all the exhaust is going out of that rad, and then the back 140. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and run some thermal tests. I'll let you guys know what the results of that are, and then we'll get into transplanting it over to the 309. All right, not gonna do a super scientific test here, just testing the P120 crystal. We'll do the CPU first. We're doing a Cinebench R23 here. Like I said, just have the 10-minute throttle test running. Like I said, got Hardware Info 64 pulled up here. Looks like we're getting around 4.5 We just passed the 10-minute mark there with a score of 11,602. Like I said, their temperatures didn't really change anywhere. We maxed out at 73 C. Like I said, I expect that average to pretty much keep with the 360EX that's on there currently. So we're gonna go ahead and do some GPU testing now to see what the 3070 in there does. So let's go ahead and get a GPU thermal test running. So let's do 4K optimized. I feel like that will stress this GPU a good bit. It is currently set to stock with auto fan curves and everything. So let's go and run this test. I have hardware info running in the background here. So we'll go and run this test. The test just completed with a score of 11,491. You can see our min max there. Go and get this baseline down. You can see the GPU temps. Min 53, max 67C with utilization at 99%. Our info 64 kind of gave us the same thing. So just kind of taking this as a baseline of the preset we used, as well as their score and temps and everything. I don't expect this to be too far different once we swap over to the new case, but I still wanted to get a baseline to see what the thermal performance would be like since we're using different fans and a different configuration. All right, so let's go and get it swapped over to the InWin 309 here, and then we'll start playing around with all the case effects and lighting and fan orientations. So let's dive into it. All right, guys, I'm going to save you some of the cable management hassle there, but the build is complete. We got it set up over here, about to start doing some benchmarking, so let's touch on that, and then I'll close on what I thought about the case, building it, and all that good stuff. I'm going to come grab you guys. We'll do the same two tests we did in the P120, and then we'll compare the results. Just like before, the test's been running for around 10 minutes now, and it looks like we're holding average of around 73 or so. Looks like the hottest we've gotten is 73.8. Let's see if what are we looking at on clocks? Yeah, same as before, around 4.4, 4.5. All core, just PBO enabled here, letting it boost on its own. But yeah, it looks like we're still holding fine around 73.6 or so, 73.8, like I said, being the hottest. So I think it's safe to go and move on to the GPU test. All right, so for GPU test, same thing as before, 4K optimized in the InWin 309. Same default fan curves as before, no overclocks or anything. And then we'll go ahead and start the test. Test just wrapped up here. It looks like score of 11,462. We can see the min and max there, minimum 53, max 68 with max utilization at 99%. Same settings and everything there. Oh yeah, like that pretty much covers our GPU thermals as well. Like then I'll put a comparison up where you guys can see what the previous test was. Hopefully you enjoyed the build process. I do have a few notes as we were going through everything there about the case. So let's start going over a few of those things. You can see with the thermal performance, yeah, pretty comparable, pretty close to what we got out of the P120. Like I said, I have, pretty much very similar fan configuration. Like I said, transplanted the same parts over, ran the same tests and everything. So with them being both this kind of chimney design with 3 in, 3 out, and having an exhaust that's kind of doing the same thing, I didn't expect them to be too far off and too different. Both perform really well. Again, not super high-end hardware. The main issue I ran into with this guy was the build process. Both the P120 and the InWin 309 here are very different, or I don't want to say less modern because both are very similar new cases, but whereas we've gotten used to, or I, for one, have gotten used to having a power supply basement at the bottom. Now, of course, with the P120 there, kind of got over that power supply at the top. Power supply is also at the top of this one. Now, what that leads to is needing to be a little more creative on cable management. Definitely have to be a little more mindful when it comes to cable management as far as the back side of the case goes. But going over a couple other build notes. An oversight of mine, actually, for this case, with using a 360 that has a decently long tubing on it, because typically for those, you'd be mounting them at the very top of a case or very front of a case, and it would be reaching all the way over to the CPU. And this instance of it being at the top, there's not a whole lot of room for the cabling or the tubing off the pump block to go. So I end up kind of just tucking it into that top corner of the case around next to that rear exhaust fan, because there was really no way I could mount it and that where it would kind of make different spacing or different room where the tubing wouldn't be touching the glass. Even flipping the in the other direction doesn't really give you a whole lot of room to do that. So definitely keep that in mind if you're going to be looking at a case like this and say putting a radiator with pretty long tubes at the top. The other thing I've noticed building in this one, other than the cable management and that, was the bottom fan mounts. Now, just like the P120, to reach some of the screws for bottom fan mounting, you'd have to remove its bottom legs that set it up off your desk, which is fine. That's not that big of a deal. There was two little pads and screws you'd have to remove on each one to pull the leg off. Then you could attach your fans and fan screws and then just put those little legs back on, and it was no big deal. Now, one thing I don't like about the way this case is oriented, you don't have as much room towards the bottom of the motherboard. Pretty much so the bottom fans I put in, the 3 intakes at the bottom that I put in, are blocking the bottom PCIe slot. Now, for some people, that's no big deal. It makes it a little bit harder to get towards your bottom USB 3, bottom USB 2. For this case, you have to use USB 2 for the little glow software, and I think we might touch on that in a little bit. But basically, it will kind of block off where you can't put a card or add card or say a capture card or whatever you may be using in that bottom PCIe slot. It seems like it would be better with a micro ATX versus a full-size ATX in this case because of that reason. You can't get to that bottom PCIe slot. Nothing can plug into it, and it does make it. You definitely want to make sure you run your cabling, so your front panel connectors, your USB pins, and all that good stuff before, unless they're on the side of your motherboard, before you ever install the fans, because it makes it near impossible to reach once they're done. Let's see, going over a few other build options and build notes here. Like I said, everything else came along fine. Like I said, I don't like that it's kind of positioned very low in the case like that. I get, you need the space for the top there where the fans and the power supply are. But there's definitely a lot of extra room on the side of the case, I will say. So, I mean, if you have options for mounting SSDs on the side there, and it's 2, you get cutouts that line up pretty well for that, to where you can run your SATA cables and your power cables and everything for them. And of course, now you will need a good amount of them for a case like this. Usually you might end up using a whole strip. For instance of my build, like I said, it takes 2 different SATA ports to run the front RGB panel and the RGB for the fans, as well as the one that powers the fans themselves, that lets them spin. Now you have the option to either pass through the fan control and lighting control to the glow software, or you can use the case buttons itself and just use the controller built into the case. That would be my only other kind of gripe with this. Now, like I said, InWin did send over a set of their other Saturns, the same fans that come with the case, where we could install them in the bottom. Now that one comes with its own controller and everything, so I had to run a SATA for that. You can't access the controller that's already built into the case. I don't know if they just didn't build it to support more than 4 fans, because the top 3 and the bottom exhaust fan are wired up to that one. So you had to run a separate controller that came with this kit to go in the bottom, which is fine. They have kind of this daisy chain feature, so you connect small cables to connect each fan, and then you would connect the controller to that. And then in the instance of the one that's already on the case, they're already pre-wired, so I just had to take them off and then put them on the radiator, so it wasn't too bad to get around. But I believe we set up these to be passed through to the motherboard control, so that's fine. But you'll definitely needed a lot of SATA connections, because you needed 2 for the case itself. I needed 1 for my pump block from Deepcool, and I needed another one to be plugged in for the controller box that was controlling these guys here. Now, as far as the case goes, you would just use that USB 2.0 connector, and you can change their software through that. That's built into the case. I mean, overall for the case, is it a little gimmicky to have this front panel with this gamepad? And I'll put some side shots here of a little game that comes with it and everything, and we'll go over some customization stuff here probably at the end of the video if you guys want to stick around and watch for that. Figured I'd do my conclusion first, then you guys can see the little mini games and everything you can do with this controller, as well as the front panel lighting and the glow software. If you guys are interested in that, leave a comment down below if you do have any questions about that as well. If you're looking for a case like this, and I don't think it takes away so much from the case, but there are definitely a lot of workarounds and sacrifices you would make to have something like this. I think this is really cool. It's a very nice front panel. I like this light tint on the tempered glass. I like the fact that it's hinged, so you basically just have to click the little top button, it'll unlatch it, and then it latches back on. That's really neat. Having captive screws on the back works great. Thermals work fine comparing, like to like from the P120 to this. I could definitely see if I want to keep this as my full-time case, if we decide to keep this one as the full-time case. Having this little controller here to maybe play Tetris or something while I'm rendering on a video and don't want to use the system for anything else. Now, granted, I still could if I wanted to, but having this to play little racing games, or Tetris, or blocks as they call it, on this while the video is rendering down would be pretty neat. Definitely wouldn't mind doing that. But overall, Like I said, I still think the case gets a pretty passing grade if you really like the front panel. Like I said, it's not as easy to build in as some of the cases on the market. Definitely would recommend this for, say, a beginner first-time build, just for the cable management system in the back, because it's so different from what we've kind of become used to of being very easy to build in, having that bottom power supply tray. Or the power supply basement, where you can just kind of stuff your extra cables down there, keep them neat and everything, but you still have room to put extra cabling down there, or controllers or hubs or whatever it may be. But overall, if I had to grade it, I'd say B+. I really like the implementation of the front panel design. That's solid. The build quality is solid. InWin has always made very nice, quality built cases. The glass feels great. The metal constructions, nothing feels wobbly or weak. But basically, as it stands, I think to come with 4 fans, you could passively draw. I like that the fan filter here is on the front of the case, so you don't have to reach around or anything to clean your bottom filter. That's awesome. Having just the outlets on the back, great, it works fine. Like I said, just a few little things, that you definitely want to look into if you're looking at a case like this. As far as not being able to access that bottom PCIe slot. Now, if that was a big deal for you, you probably could just get rid of that bottom fan, or just go with bottom fans in general. Check out, like I said, if you want to stick around for the rest of the video, I'm gonna be showing off some of the little remote control here, some little games you can play on it, as well as the Glow software on how that's set up and works. You can go in and customize it to show different displays. You can build your own little outputs there. If you guys can see a little pattern, it's kind of glowing now, and the fans will actually follow suit as far as the ones that are plugged into the front. The fans will follow suit to what you add onto the front panel. And of course, you can set this up to do a clock and a bunch of other things. But like I said, I'll leave that in the video at the end here if you guys are interested in that and want to see that. Otherwise, appreciate you guys stopping by. Definitely check us out on Instagram if you want to see more close-ups of this case over at Desktops Gaming. If you guys want to see, like I said, close-ups or more, shots of this case. And of course, future builds. We have some more coming on the way. As far as projects we got working on now, I do have a mini ITX system, or excuse me, a micro ATX system that'll be up next, as well as we're going to be adding something over here and over here. So these may be gone soon. So definitely stick around if you guys want to see what I mean by that. Might even post some teasers up on our Instagram. Okay, guys, we're going to leave the end of the video here for showing off the front panel and the Glow software. And you guys have a good one. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Take it easy.